Ciao, welcome to Delicious Italian. Today what I'm going to be making is risotto, a mushroom risotto. I was just chopping this small medium onion. I have my other ingredients here, my short-grained arborio rice from Italy, of course, my sliced white mushrooms. I just have white mushrooms here. You can use any type of mushroom that you prefer. I don't happen to like a really strong mushroom, but whatever type mushroom you like will work in this dish. I also have some Romano cheese here, of course salt and pepper. I have some herbs, I have some basil, and some fresh thyme and fresh marjoram. Of course I have my broth simmering on the stove and some white wine, and I'm going to take out some butter and olive oil and use that as well. Let's get started on this dish. I'm going to get started by sauteing this onion a little bit in my pan. I'm melting some butter here. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of olive oil to my couple tablespoons of butter, and then I'll put my onion in when that's nice and melty and ready for the onions, and I'll just saute that a little bit. Let's get going. I'm just chopping 3 cloves of garlic here. I want it really fine mince on this. I don't want to find any big chunks of garlic in my risotto. There we go. Check on my onions. Onions are fine. They're just about ready for this risotto. Now, if you've never made risotto, you'll see the procedure here, but it's rather important to follow this certain way to make risotto. Now, it is time consuming. You're going to be at the stove for a good 25 minutes, but pour yourself a glass of wine and enjoy the process. That's what I do. All right, our onions got nice and translucent, and I've added our chopped mushrooms in there. Now we want to get these cooked nicely, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to remove part of these mushrooms because, well, the mushroom and the onion actually, because I like that flavor to really get into the pan and on the pan, but I also I don't want all those mushrooms to break down. So I want to take some of them out, and then I will add them back in towards the end of the cooking. As you can see, I've added the rice to our pan, and I'm just toasting this up. What you want to do is toast this in the butter and oil, or just butter, or whatever you have in your pan. I have 2 tablespoons of butter and about a tablespoon of oil, and it will just kind of start sounding like it's popping almost, just a little toasty. And then at this point, I want to add in my garlic. My garlic is finely chopped. There we go. And I'm just going to stir that in. Now, we're going to put some liquid in here pretty quickly, so I'm not really worried about that garlic burning, especially because it's going to be cooking for a while. And if I hadn't had a lot of ingredients in here, I might have to worry about that. Now, the first thing I'm going to add is a little bit of wine in there to deglaze that pan. You don't need too much. That was maybe a 1/4 of a cup. And just stir it around. Now, we're going to deglaze this pan, get those flavors up off the bottom of the pan. There we go. Okay, now the process here is we continue stirring and adding 1 ladle at a time. We will add our broth. And here I go with the first ladle. Sometimes I add about 1 1/2, depending on the quantity that I'm making. And you just want that broth to reduce before you add another ladle or 1 1/2 ladles. Now, I think you could see that pretty much the liquid has all been absorbed. Time to add another 1 1/2 ladles. And we'll just continue this process. I have this rice on a medium-high heat right now. I wouldn't go any higher than that. You could go to a medium if you felt like it were cooking too quickly or boiling out too quickly. That liquid, that is. Okay, time to add another ladle. Just stir it. Make sure you get all of the rice stirred up. Don't leave any parts untouched. There we go. Now I'm going to add just part of my herbs right now. I just kind of like to have that herbal flavor going in there and getting kind of a deep cooked flavor. And then at the end I like the fresh herbs right at the very end, and I'll show you that. My quantity of rice here is about 3 cups of uncooked rice, and I'm using about 2 quarts of stock. So kind of the way you know that when your rice is ready is when, or almost ready, is when you're almost out of stock. And if for some reason you think you need more stock, you can add it. You can add water if you don't have stock, but I'd rather have leftover stock than not have enough. So be sure that you have plenty. You can always save that stock for another use if you end up having too much. But about the time that my stock is almost gone, I taste the rice to see, and I know that it's going to take, like I said a few times, about 25 minutes. Nevertheless, you want to taste your rice and see how the tenderness on it is, so that you'll know that it's almost ready. When we finish this dish, we're going to add herbs, we're going to add butter, and we're going to add the rest of our mushrooms in that we removed a little while ago. As I mentioned before, you want to be sure that your stock is at a constant simmer, because if it weren't simmering, you wouldn't want to add it to this rice and have to heat up. It would affect the way the rice cooks. So you only want to add simmering liquid to this. Simmering or hotter, but not cooler than a simmer. My stock does not happen to be low sodium. It is a well-seasoned stock. So I want to be mindful of that as I cook this dish, not to add too much salt, because I also have the Romano cheese that will be going in here, and I don't want it to be salty. So the safest way to do this is to kind of go easy on the salt, taste it towards the end, and taste it when you're going to add the cheese, so you know how it tastes. And if you need to adjust the salt, then do so right after you've added the cheese, because as you know, the cheese is quite salty. I'm adding just a little bit of salt there. That was just really a pinch. I'm going to add some pepper. If you don't care for pepper, don't add it. We like it. Just a few more minutes. Maybe one more ladle full or so. I think it's time to add our reserved mushrooms back in. There we go. That way we have some larger pieces of mushrooms that haven't really broken down in that long cooking process. It kind of adds a little different flavor and more flavor. There we go. Another ladle full here. Go. You can see when you add that ladle of broth that it just goes right in, because it's nice and hot, and the rice is super hot. So okay. Now, risotto should not be dry. It should be creamy. In fact, the Italian term for it is l'onda, meaning the wave. If I were to shake this pan, it could get like a wave in it, and that would be a perfect risotto. So Don't expect to take this all the way to being dry. You do not want that. You want a creaminess. However, there is no cream added here. I will add just a couple of tablespoons, or even really just a tablespoon of butter right at the end, just before I add my herbs and after I've added the last of my broth. Now I'm almost done with my broth here, and I know that this dish is just about ready. So what I do now, I'm going to cook this, leaving it creamy. I don't want all that liquid to go all the way into the rice. I'm going to add our herbs in, our pat of butter, and about a cup of our Romano cheese. Stir it right in, turn off the heat, and that is the risotto. Our risotto is ready. It smells divine, and I think if you make this at home, you will agree it is delicious Italian. Thank you for joining me, and I do hope you'll join me again for more delicious Italian. Buon appetito!